If you're a taxpayer, then you're not a landlord.
Right.
If you're a taxpayer, you're a tenant here, and you're paying a tax as a fee for the privilege of being here. But if you're a native son, if you are an American, you're a landlord, and you don't owe yourself taxes on your land or anything else. The only thing that you could possibly owe would be things like sales taxes or import fees and that sort of thing. Now, there are a lot of bones to pick with this system, but if we're going to pick them, let us pick them now, because this is our window of opportunity to bring these issues forward, which is going to lead right into something that I need to discuss with everyone. You all know how expensive lawsuits are, and you all know how nasty they can be. Well, we are facing an upcoming event which may be the mother of all lawsuits. And we need to really seriously develop our war chest. And I use the word war not to, in the euphemistic sense. I'm not talking about armed conflict here. I'm talking about duel of wits and duel of legal standing and duel of public law versus private law. I'm talking about that kind of a war chest. This is a critical time. October 1st, just a couple days from now, is the end of the fiscal year for the federal government. And with that will come some changes. You'll be seeing more and more of the territorial verbiage used. You'll see upper and lower case. You'll see territorial courts. You'll see municipal courts converted to USMJ, U.S. Military courts.
Oh.
They'll be using courts of military justice. And the municipal bankruptcy will continue on into a transitional fading out of the municipal franchises and corporations. So you're in the middle of a giant transition. It's very, there's a lot up for grabs. It's a lot that is in danger, okay? And there are legal arguments to be made. There are diplomatic outreaches to be made. There are results of elections and election practices to be dealt with. Basically, the Democratic Party has gone whole hog for the one world order because they can pay off their cronies using everybody else's stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so they're in the Rockefeller branch. They're in the one world government, la-di-da-di-da, you know. It's the old, some pigs are more equal than others scenario with them. And then you have the military, and that's realistically the only other choice there is at this moment in terms of the subcontractors. And so the military is deeply in debt too, but they're hanging on to their principles for the most part. Remembering always that there are two entities that have been serving both governments, both subcontractors. So you've had NATO and DOD, right? Municipal entities, and you've had the Department of Defense and the actual, what we think of as the American armed forces under the territorial government. Anyway, so you've got these two behemoth corporations. Both of them are bankrupt. One is benefiting from the bankruptcy of the other because they're bringing their debts in on board as collectibles, right? One of them is relatively better off than the other. The military is better off than the municipal because the military has means of raising capital and doing things that the municipal government doesn't have. So you've got a toss-up between a municipal government that is definitely going away and a lot of municipal property that's up for grabs, and a military government which is more or less corrupt depending on who's in charge of it. So it's not a happy election season in America. But we have the third option, which is our own government, which is meant to overstand the military, and which the military clearly knows is they're supposed to follow the civilian government. And so we have the option to bring forward our position, and we have to do that now. I mean, it's all kind of coming to a head right now, the next 6 months. And Lord knows we've been fighting and dispensing with all sorts of questions for many years now. But the stuff that's coming on the horizon right now is pretty scary, especially if there is a change in administration. It could be downright terrifying. So I'm asking everybody to dig deep. Everybody who can contribute. Contribute time, contribute money, contribute skills. Because we're going to need you. We're going to need everybody. It's all hands on deck. It's all resources come to bear. In this next month, we're going to have to deal with some very intense situations. And we have to have the money to do it. And we have to have the manpower to do it. And so I'm asking everybody to really scratch around and look, think. Your government is here to protect you. That is the only reason that a government has for existing, is to protect you and your property. And that is what we have done since day one. That has been the entire focus, is to protect Americans, protect American states. So, help us help you. I'm still the cook and bottle washer. I'm still the one in charge of the paymaster arrangements. I don't know how I got settled with that, but I just came along with everything else. So please send to our PayPal account, if you can, which is the same as the email address. It's AVANNAVON, Avanavon @gmail.com. Send checks and money orders and that sort of thing to Anna Maria Reisinger, RIEZINGER, in care of Post Office Box 520994 in Big Lake, Alaska. That's 99652. I cannot overstate the importance of being on our toes for the next 6 months. This is a critical juncture in history when a lot is going to be decided. And we have got to get our message out there. We have got to get our assemblies really populated, rolling, our courts in operation, our militias functioning. And the United States of America has to be out there on the high seas, navigable inland waterways, and in the air jurisdictions, dueling like dogfights with all these foreign interests that want to come in and deprive us of our inheritance and steal us blind. Now we have taped video, movie quality confession of Franklin Delano Roosevelt admitting that his administration confiscated 20,000 tons of gold from average Americans, from our grandparents and great-grandparents, and also admitting what he did with that money. 6,000 tons of gold were used to back the Federal Reserve banks. And the rest was used to fund the World Bank and the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, the IBRD. So between them, 14,000 tons of gold. We know that. We have the video. We have the records. That's owed to Americans to back our banks to do what we need to do. But we have to come forward. We have to fight for it. We have to bring the facts to the attention of the entire world, because otherwise the world will just happily eat that right up and forget about it. Thank you very much. So those are the kinds of things that we deal with. These are the kinds of things that we bring forward. Or like the indemnity bond, placing the indemnity bond for the land so that creditors of our subcontractors couldn't come in here and make claims against your land and soil. These are things that we do because there's nobody else to do it. And we need your support in order to be able to do it. We cannot continue to go on with just the skeletal framework and backbone of researchers and volunteers that we've got. We've got to hire some more help. We've got to have a mail clerk. We just have to have more resources in order to do this properly. And the next 6 months are going to be a burn, because we know that the final stage of the bankruptcy of the municipal government is going to lead to widespread insurrection and unrest, because basically we have huge amounts of resources that we can bring to bear, but we will be unable to access those resources unless we win our points, unless we bring forward our claims and win. And what's going to happen is that all those people that have been dependent on the municipal government will be left without their checks. All those municipal governments that have been supported by the Holy Roman Empire concept of the city of the governments, all of these so-called sanctuary cities, and all these other entities that have been on our shores illegally, because remember, the municipal government was never supposed to have enclaves like this all over, okay? It's going to be a mess unless we can get in front of it, gain access to our resources, and be able to soften this and be able to make it possible for everybody to have a smooth transition into a better world. So do what you can, folks. The time has come. The next 6 months are going to be tough. And they're going to be especially tough for us here and for those that are working the international scene. That's just the way it is. Whether we're ready or not, whether we are old or young, we're here. And we just have to have faith that we're here for a reason, and that we're going to do the best that we can, and that we will have divine providence on our side, and that the love and fellow feeling that we have as Americans for America and for our fellow countrymen will stand the test. We've come this far, we're not turning back. So I just wanted to kind of make sure I got that information out to everyone tonight, because day after tomorrow is October 1.
Wow.
And I do expect that pensions will be covered. I do expect that basic welfare will continue for those who are on welfare. But I also expect a downscaling of a lot of what we think of as government programs. I expect to see quite a few prisoners released from federal detention. Unfortunately, that will probably be replaced by new prisoners of a different kind going into federal detention. I do expect that there will be provisions made to sustain life in larger cities that will be most impacted. But a lot of the people that Bill Gates has denigrated and disparaged as useless eaters will be at risk. And it will be up to all of us to do our level best to gain access to our resources, to then deploy those resources to mitigate suffering, to bear up our part of the responsibility in our communities in terms of community food banks and community services, to assist the elderly and the young, especially, to reach out to our neighbors who are on the fringe edge of things. I know that this afternoon I received a call from neighbors of ours that have had a very, very hard go of it this past year. And they are asking basically if I can help them buy some elastomeric roof covering for their trailer home so that they can stop the roof from leaking this winter. And making yourself available to the extent that you can to do these little extra acts of charity and defense of your neighbors from the elements and from starvation and from lack of good water and all these other things. It comes home to us as Americans and as people that take a responsible role in our world to make it a better place. So don't close your eyes to the suffering that goes on around you. And at the same time, be aware that we are here, we are being heard, we are making our claims well known, and we are seeking access to our trust accounts and our resources to be able to institute a completely new form of not government, because we're actually restoring the government we should have had all along, but to create a new form of, I won't say welfare, but a new way for people to go forward and actually have meaningful lives and have jobs that they love and to have education and the things that they need to have a worthwhile life and not be slaves to a government and not be subject to 80 million statutory rules, regulations, codes, and corporate laws. In many ways, the welfare system in the United States has been used as a means to enslave people. It has meant that they had just a bare modicum of what it takes to live. They may have had some kind of roof over their head. They may have had some food in their stomach, but they did not have their pride, and they did not have their freedom, and they did not have opportunities. And most of them were being kept as sort of livestock on life support, barely making any kind of existence for themselves at all. And they've been preyed upon by drug cartels as the primary customers for drugs and alcohol and all these other illicit things. So they've been degraded, and it's been largely it's been a self-interested and purposeful predation upon the poor in this country and many other countries too. So we have a totally different community-based vision for how to help people and how to bring them forward and give them strength and opportunity to want a better life, to fight their addictions, and to come home. But in order to do that, we have to gain control of our own assets. We have to bring forward our own contracts. We have to bring forward our own claims to our assets and many other rather difficult things that can only be done in the international realm, because our subcontractors are foreign and they are largely the ones responsible for having purloined our assets in the first place. So going back through the historical records and bringing them forward and laying them at the proper doors and making sure that this information is available and is widely understood becomes part of the name of the game here. So where we are on the 28th of September, Monday, as the leaves are falling down.
Well, thank you for that, Anna.
I didn't mean to digress, but it was on my mind, and I did want everybody to know that we're facing some huge hurdles here in October as everything is being shuffled around, and more important dates are coming up in terms of the bankruptcy of the territorial government and the settlement of the municipal government.
Thank you for that. And that was really important information to share and to get out to everybody. And I think it is a wake-up call for just how serious this really is, what we have facing.
It's incredibly serious. I mean, we have every bounder and excuse maker from here to Tel Aviv trying to steal from America and Americans and using any kind of excuse they can find to do so.
Yep. And we want our stuff.
Yeah, I mean, We're not greedy people. Americans have always been generous, always. But we want our stuff. And we want our security and our peace and our freedom, which we have earned. And so, bringing that message forward to the world community is not difficult to do, but it requires a lot of technical and communications and relations stuff that goes on. And that costs money.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody understands that what goes on at the international level is different than what happens in our local communities. And a lot of my attention is focused on the international side of it. I want everybody to work together. I really want and need the states' assemblies to pull together and everybody to work as one team toward making their state the vision of what your family wants. Okay, this is your family. We come in all sorts of different colors, shapes, sizes, ages. Americans, Wisconsinites, Alaskans, Californians, okay? But that's your family. So sit down with your family. Forget about the corporations. Forget about hierarchy. Forget about being greater or lesser. Think of it in terms of work to be done. Think of it in terms of sitting at your family table. And sure, dad has his responsibilities, mom has hers, and the kids have theirs, and grandma has her spot. But your family. That's our model. That's what America, the real America is a giant family. And so try to set aside doubts and fears. Remember, some of the best advice ever given to mankind. Do not let your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Don't waste time on being troubled and afraid. Just set your sights on positive action, on doing the things that need to be done, on pulling together your assemblies. They're basically just 4 different things that have to be done. You have to have your general assembly up and running. You have to have your business assembly identified in case there are international questions. You have to know who the state citizens are for those. You have to have your jural assembly, courts and elections, and your militia. You can do this. I know you can. So work together to do it. My thought for tonight.
A darn good one. One of the things that we were talking about on this last coordinator call, just a couple of items that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, is that we do have a successful grand jury in Utah, and they have seen some incredible successes with the cases that have been brought before the grand jury there. So a big shout out to Utah for doing an amazing and incredible job. Yay. But one of the things that we were talking about is people are so worried about whether they're doing it right or not. And just speaking to the message that you just gave all of us, we just need to do what we can do, the best that we can do. And if we need to course correct, we'll course correct. It's not a big deal.
Right, right. And also be aware that we're all coming in from a system that's very different. We're all a little disoriented, and we're all going to fall back somewhat on experience that really doesn't apply. one of the big things that's happening is we're getting a lot of people in who came out of high-powered corporate positions. And they've been trained in systems where, everything is compartmentalized. You have your tax department, you have your legal department, you have your personnel department, you have this, that, and the other thing. And everything is all very hierarchical, where you have the CEO standing up on top, and then you have vice presidents and district managers and blah, blah, blah. That isn't the way this works at all. And those people are going to have to be retrained, literally, gently grabbed by the nose and said, hey, no, this is Cousin Joe and Aunt Anna and Grandma Beth, and this is a family. This is not a hierarchy. And we're going to discuss all these things together. We're not going to have a little separate committee that goes off in the back room and decides everything for us. We're going to decide it ourselves. This is about self-governance. And that means each of us and the entire group as a whole. So when you start seeing this corporate mentality taking root again, don't be shy. Object to it immediately. Bring it forward. And tell people, no, we're not a private club. We are not a corporation. We're a family. And that's how we operate here. Everybody's equal, at least in terms of, their basic reality of being living, breathing people, right? And some people have got jobs that are important in some respect to the good of the whole. I don't know about anybody else, but when I was a kid growing up on the farm, everybody had jobs. From the smallest to the oldest, everybody had jobs. And we all did our job. We all did our part to contribute to the good of the whole. My dad was a big, strong man, and he took care of a lot of work on that farm. And he had the respect that he earned. My mother did a tremendous amount of work. She had her respect for what she did, even though it wasn't the same job as my father, okay? Grandma did everything that she possibly could do. And even little me, age 4, out there in the chicken yard collecting eggs and feeding the animals, okay? We all had something to do for the good of the whole. And that's the way that we're supposed to function as a self-governing government. We're all supposed to do our bit, whatever it is that we can do and are willing to do. Then we step forward and we do it. And we just operate as a family. It's not like anybody is lording it over us. It's a matter of working together for the good of the whole. And that includes our county, our state, and the entire country. And beyond that, the world.
The other thing that we're seeing, Anna, is a lot of the corporate influence, but also the blatant criminality that has gone on around us. That criminality sometimes shows up in the assembly. And we have to call it out. Yeah.
We have to recognize it. Like when we did business in Oklahoma, there were people there that had been doing it wrong for so long, they didn't know it was illegal to steal gas from the company.
Oh, gosh.
They'd been filling up at the company pump for so long that everybody just took it for granted, that was okay. And so we have instances of people who, with the best of intentions, come in and they start setting up Ponzi schemes, or they start setting up some sort of kickback racket.
Right.
Or they come in and they start trying to chisel up the service fees for things like ordering credentials, or, you know, whatever it is, there's always going to be someone who's coming out of this really corrupt system looking for ways to make money on this. And everybody does have to be aware, and they have to keep their eyes and ears open and say, no, you know, this is a family. We're all going to keep track of the money. We're all going to keep track of how this works so that there isn't going to be that kind of problem.
Thank you, Anna. This has been an amazing show, and a lot of great information, I think, has really been shared this evening. So thank you so much for all of the work that you, your family, and your team do. We are so very grateful. Thank you.
Well, and I was certainly grateful this week when I got that box of thank you notes and all the little atta girls and you know, the small cash donations, and it just meant the world to me. And I really thank everyone responsible for that. Was a great moment of sort of revelation to understand fully that this is how we survive and thrive despite everything that is thrown at us. It's that's fellowship and that caring about each other and forging forward together. That's how we make it. That's how we overcome all the various obstacles that have been placed in our way. Thank you all for reminding me.
Well, thank you again, Anna, and we will look forward to seeing you again next week, right here.
Same bat station, same bat channel. Okay, guys, be blessed. Have a wonderful week. Do not be afraid of anything. Just put your faith in higher